All right, so lesson 1-5 is about comparing decimals. And when we're saying comparing decimals, we're talking about whether one is bigger than the other or one is smaller than the other. So you need to know that this symbol, and this symbol are going to be really important to what we're going to call inequalities. These are essentially inequalities that we're talking about. So this symbol right here is the little alligator eating the left side. That's greater than. This symbol right here, the little alligator going to the right, that's less than. This right here means equal. Now, I'm going to give you a bonus one. If I put an equal here and I cross it out like that, this means does not equal. We won't be using this one as much, but I do want you to know that one exists. This one also exists. If you see the little alligator eating the left side with a line under it, this means greater than or equal to. So we can take that same thinking and apply it to this one where the alligator is facing the right. This is less than or equal to. And these are the symbols that you're going to really have to understand. So if you ever see them, you should know. Left side is greater than. Right side is less than. Equal, does not equal. Greater than or equal, less than or equal. Now, comparing decimals is a relatively simple thing. If I'm asking you to look at two decimals like this, 0 and 21 hundredths, compared to 0 and 21 thousandths, we should be able to see just by looking at these decimals which one is greater. We know that if we have pieces of thousandths, these are actually a lot smaller because remember, we represent thousandths with these tiny cubes. And we would have 21 of them versus our 21 hundredths, which is going to look a little bit different. Well, I know if I have 21 thousandths, it's going to make something like this. This takes up 10 thousandths because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's our 10 pieces. Let me finish up this drawing. So that's 10 thousandths, which we also notice is something else. We also notice that this is 1 hundredth. They're the same thing. Here we're going to draw another one because we have 21 thousandths, so I'm going to draw another column of them. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's another 10 thousandths. So now we have two groups of them. So we have either two groups of 10 thousandths or we have two groups of 100th. So now we're at 20 thousandths. Or we're at 2 hundredths. And then we have one more thousandth. So this is 20, 10, 20, 21. That's what 21 thousandths will look like. Plus one more thousandth. And we're going to write it down here as well. Plus one more thousandth. By comparison, if we know that each of these is a hundredth, we know that we have 100th here. So there's one big column here. And then we have two tenths. So we know that the 10th piece is going to be this big flat 100 block that you guys are so used to. By looking at these, it's pretty easy for us to tell that 21 hundredths is bigger than 21 thousandths. So we can put our little alligator in, and he wants to eat the side with more things. But the thing is, you're not always going to have manipulatives. You won't always have something to model out. So the strategy we're going to go for is comparing without models. Let's say that we're comparing these same numbers, and I'm just going to teach you a process. So this process will help you figure out which one's bigger without you having to draw anything out. You see how both of these numbers have decimal points? We're actually going to take both our numbers and line them up using the decimal points, because the decimal point will help us keep track of all of our place values. So I'm going to put it down like this. And if it really helps, we notice that this doesn't make a nice perfect box shape we want it to. So it'll help us to put a 0 as a placeholder here. When I'm comparing, I'm always going to go from left to right. So this is our ones place. What do you notice about the ones place? They're both 0. So they're not going to tell us that one is bigger than the other. So the ones place didn't help. So we move on to the next place value, which is going to be the tenths. We have a 2 in 21 hundredths, and we have a 0. What do you notice about 2 compared to 0? We notice that 2 is bigger than 0. So we already know that this number is greater than this number. So we can draw our alligator. We said that 0 and 21 hundredths is bigger than 0 and 21 thousandths. So we're going to point our alligator at 21 hundredths. Now that we had a sample of what we just on comparing decimals, we're going to try again with a few more. So let's go ahead and write down 3 and 105. I'm going to erase that. 3 and 105 thousandths. And we're going to compare that to 3 and 105, except this time I'm going to add an extra 0 there. Now, we're going to go ahead and line these up. We're going to have 3 and 105. And then down here we're going to have 3 and 1050. And we're going to compare the two. What's a good thing we should do here with this nice blank spot? If you were thinking placeholder, we should probably put a placeholder. So let's start comparing. And when we compare, remember, we always go from left to right. So the 3's in the 1's place, neither of these are greater than or less than each other, so they don't help us. The 1's don't help us. The 10th place also doesn't because they're both 1/10. The hundredths place also doesn't help because they're both 0. The 5's also don't help because they're both 5's. And then we get to this spot right here. This placeholder is a 0. This is a 0. They also don't help. So what does that say about 3 and 105 thousandths compared to 3 and 1050 ten thousandths? It tells us that these two are equal. Let's try another one. Let's say sometimes we're given 3 numbers and we have to think about the comparison between all of them. Well, how do I compare all 3 of these? I'm just going to line them all up by their place values using the decimal point. The decimal point tells me where all the place values are. So I'm going to write 4 and 325 thousandths, 4 and 235 thousandths, and 4 and 327 thousandths. And I'm going to start comparing from left to right. I have that nice box shape that I was talking about earlier already because all the place values are perfectly filled in. So I can start 4, 4, 4. None of these are any different from each other. So we know the 1's place is not helpful. Now we can go to the tenths. We have a 3, a 2, and a 3. We notice that this 2 is smaller, so that tells me that 4 and 235 thousandths is the smallest of the 3 decimals. So I don't need to work with that one anymore. I've already found its place. But I notice that the 3 and the 3 of 4 and 325 thousandths and 4 and 327 thousandths are still the same. Moving on to the hundredths place, I notice the 2 and the 2 are the same, so they won't help us. But then I go on and I see 5 and 7. So now I know this 7 is bigger and the 5 is smaller. So I know 4 and 327 thousandths is the largest decimal we have. And then this one goes in the middle. So now I'm going to set up, after I erase this, I'm going to go ahead and set up my inequality. I'm going to say 4 and 327 thousandths is greater than 4 and 325 thousandths, which is greater than 4 and 235 thousandths. All right, so let's go ahead and check the first one. So I wrote out these 3 problems for you guys to try. We have 3 and 600th compared to 3 and 6 thousandths. So if we line these up by their decimals, we can go ahead and start comparing. Now, we don't have that nice box shape, so we're going to fill in a placeholder, and we're going to put in that little dotted 0. Start from the left. 3s, not helpful. 0s, not helpful. 6. This 6 is bigger than a 0. And this original number was 3 and 600ths, so we know that the alligator wants to eat the 3 and 600ths. Moving on to the next one, we have 4 and 5200ths, and we're going to line it up with the decimal points again. And 4 and 52 thousandths, we see that this does not have the nice box shape, so we're going to put that 0 again, the little placeholder circle. 0, not circle. Compare from the left, starting at the left, we have 4s, not helpful, 5 and 0, and we notice that the 5 is bigger right away. So 4 and 5200ths is our bigger number here. The alligator is going to eat the left. And then we get to our last one, which is going to be 7 compared to 6 and 999 thousandths. What I do notice here is that 7 is a whole number, so it doesn't have a decimal. But I know with every whole number, if I wanted a decimal point, it's all the way to the right of that number. So in this case, it's right there. And then I can line it up with the decimal of 6.999. This definitely does not have the nice box shape that I want, so I know that I need a 0 here, a 0 here, and a 0 here to make that nice box shape. I can start comparing now. 7 to 6. I noticed right away the 7 is bigger than the 6. So I know that the alligator is going to eat to the left.